You never know with men, not when they're embodied with so much mystery and greatness like the great Henry Fonda. He was a genius of a kind, and one of the silver screen masterminds that history has recorded. His charm, lengthy physique, and natural calmness on screen no doubt made him one of the superstars of his time. Very versatile and skillful, with a few strange tales that would mark his glamorous but quiet life in the entertainment circle. He was also the ladies' man, with countless affairs, and interestingly, marriages that would keep his name evergreen for generations. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Matenta's channel. Henry Fonda is one of those you can look at their profile with a nod of appreciation for a job well done. He was a dogged personality who obeyed rules, met obstacles, and had his ways of overcoming numerous challenges. Maybe I should say he came, saw, and also conquered like most legendary icons of his type. He was one of the men in Hollywood that had just about everything life has to offer: women, love, hate, fame, marriages, children, disappointment, and tragic experiences. One Take Fonda, as he was fondly called, is remarkable for his natural abilities and attraction in front of the camera. His behind-the-scene character was even more dazzling than the mirror image fans knew about him. I hear that during his prime period in Hollywood, he was always seen with Fresh Ladies Weekly, flaunting his Hollywood golden boy persona. Make no mistake about this, life was not an easy ride for Henry. There were a few complications along the way than most people realized. What do you know about Henry Fonda? A lean 6-foot guy with a less intimidating body build that was to his advantage, and it seems that he was aware of it and always conveyed that he was a homegrown American. Of course, he showed us that he was in touch with social decorum, but with a tendency to escape his comfort zone. After watching his precisionist style of acting, I couldn't disagree with Andrew Sarris, who declared that he was our most truthful actor. His inclination on screen portrays his real ethics, which adds to his creativity. Henry Fonda was an interesting character and a great personality that history would not forget in a hurry, even with his quirky background. I guess at birth most people never gave him a chance in life, the irony of fate. His childhood was unusual for some obvious reasons. Born in Nebraska in 1905, his ancestors were among the earliest Dutch population to settle in what is today known as upstate New York before his parents relocated to Nebraska. Fonda was born into a strict Christian Scientist family, a common practice being that the family didn't believe in doctors and instead embraced self-medication to take care of health-related issues, a practice that almost killed the dream of young Henry early in his life. Being a very shy young boy, Fonda stayed away from childhood romances because he wouldn't mingle with the girls except his sisters. His shielded upbringing didn't help matters regarding talking to strangers. Expectedly, young Fonda bottled up his emotions inside to be exploited later in life, though it wasn't easy for him at the beginning. He was active in physical activities as a teenager, including participating in the Boy Scouts of America. At age 14, teenage Fonda witnessed a killing of an individual during the 1919 Omaha race riot, an incident that shaped his view about certain things for the rest of his life. He once told the media it was the most horrendous sight he had ever seen. A few things he was active in included skating, swimming, and racing, even with his early smallish stature. And soon he found himself in his father's print plant, hoping to become a press officer by studying journalism at the University of Minnesota. As he grew older with a much better height than anyone would ever predict for him, Fonda did some odd jobs like working for a phone company before developing an interest in the theater, and soon identified with the Omaha Community Playhouse. Perhaps as a hobby, it became a destiny move that later defined his life. At the Omaha Community Playhouse, Fonda became somewhat popular and had Dodie Brandon, legendary Marlon Brando's mother, audition him. Reports say that he was so happy to be on stage that he became a workaholic about everything in the theater, from set construction to stage management. He was more than eager to start performing, but his characteristic of being shy was an obstacle in the way. But he was determined to live above the deficiency, so he found a way to cut corners. And it worked for him, because in 1928, he extended his vision towards stage activities by going for the well-respected university players on the East Coast. And in no time, He got real professional roles that opened up the genius in him. The first thing indicating that the once timid Henry was grown up is when he meets and falls in love with beautiful actress Margaret Sullivan while doing a stint with the University Players. He courageously wooed Margaret, and she accepted him. Critics say it was an epic in history when he took another step to cement his newfound love in matrimony. Their wedding was even sweeter because Fonda chose a happy time to say "I do" to Margaret, the Christmas season, as the couple was wedded on Christmas Day in 1931. With much hope and expectation for the young lovers, they publicly exhibited their affection with a romantic display. Fonda was 26, and his wife was less than 5 years behind him. Unfortunately, with little or no marital experience, the couple soon discovers that there is more to marriage than love. That union became the first of Fonda's 5 marriages, but the real marital issues soon set in, with occasional public emotional outbursts from both sides, being that Margaret was dishonorably rebellious. It resulted in sharp disagreement, and Fonda found himself complaining bitterly and sometimes very aggressively. Young Margaret proved to be his match, as she faced him one-on-one. At a particular dinner, she was so infuriated that she took a jug of ice water and emptied it on Henry Fonda's handsome head. Dumbfounded by her audacity, Fonda sat motionless for a while before walking out of the house. Satisfied with her action, Margaret returned to the eating table and continued with her food. That was some of the sights and sounds that characterized that marriage. It seems that the two tried their best to cultivate that union, but with the inexperience on both sides, even relocating to New York City to continue their honeymoon and to do some job hunting couldn't save them from the awkward end to their marriage that only lasted for 2 months. It was an opener for Fonda, but I'm not sure he learned his lesson from that brief marriage. It only brought out the side of him that he bottled up since he was a teenager. He became a womanizer. As soon as that divorce was finalized in 1933, Fonda began a dating spree. One relationship to hit the gossip column the most was one with Shirley Ross. It was even reported that they were engaged, with wedding plans going on, a period that marked the most scandalous period of his life. Fonda's friendship with Jimmy Stewart was remarkable, as the two became a two-man squad of acute philanderers and was successful with high and mighty ladies. They soon became Hollywood stars because luck followed them wherever they went. And fortune smiled on Fonda when he landed a role that would change his life forever after years of crawling in Tinseltown. Fonda's leading role in The Farmer Takes a Wife was a game-changer for him, and it also saw him pulling with the likes of Carole Lombard after sagging Greta Garbo. Sometime in 1936, we heard that Fonda was now with actress Virginia Bruce. But that same year, Fonda moved in for a second marriage with a stylish but delicate socialite, Frances Ford Seymour Brokaw, a widow of a rich industrialist, George Tuttle Brokaw. Frances's husband had just died at the time, so she was still recovering from the shock. It turns out that Fonda had just tangled himself with the emotionally unavailable Frances, a woman still engulfed with rage and pain. At this time, Fonda was ready to be a family man, at least so it seems, because that marriage produced 2 of his children, Jane Fonda and Peter Fonda. But it wasn't an easy one for him. I also heard that Henry's devotion then was perfect, as he had abandoned his filming schedule for the film Jezebel to witness Jane's birth in 1937, a movie that gave Fonda stardom. Fonda first met Frances at Denham Studios in England during the filming of Wings of the Morning, the first European 3-strip Technicolor movie, and soon after her husband's death, he went after her. But in 1949, Fonda woke up one morning and announced to his wife that he wanted a divorce so that he could remarry after 13 years of what appeared like marital endurance. Fonda felt traumatized by the years of his wife's emotional imbalance. But that was not all. The next story was that Frances went to the Austin Riggs Psychiatric Hospital where she was being treated and took her own life. Before her death, she had written 6 letters to a few people in her life, but none was addressed to her husband. Reports say that Fonda hurriedly organized a private burial that had just himself and his mother-in-law in attendance. Dr. Margaret Gibson, who treated Frances before her death, would later describe Henry Fonda as a cold, self-absorbed person and a complete narcissist, he was quoted. Critics attributed Fonda's actions towards his late wife as part of the effect of World War II. Recall that he was one of those who volunteered to be part of the war ravaging Europe. Fonda readily made himself available as he left both California and his young family to enlist in the Army. And he was quoted to have said he also wanted to be a war hero, saying, "I don't want to be in a fake war in a studio." And when he returned from the horrors of the war, he had changed into a hardened, unfriendly family man, and subsequently estranged himself from his family, his wife, and even his children. He simply lost interest in them. The kids also had memories of their father, with Peter Fonda saying that his father never told him, "I love you," while Jane Fonda recalled how her father devalued her spirit by saying to her, "Unless you look perfect, you're not going to be loved." All was a reflection of a man who was not in touch with his family and couldn't have been a good father at the time. After finding comfort in the arms of Susan Blanchard, Fonda became very eager to discard his wife of many years, who was suffering from bipolar disorder. Some say he betrayed her, while others argued that he just needed to get his sanity back after years of unhappiness. His unfaithful romance with sizzling young Susan Blanchard, who was 20 years younger, was the only thing on his mind at the time. This is the reason Frances, his wife, who was so frustrated with his infidelity and a request for divorce, decided to end it in such a tragic manner. Maybe Fonda was devastated by the eventual outcome when the news hit him, but his subsequent actions left critics wondering what may have inspired his decisions, especially the decision to secretly bury his wife without letting two of his kids, who were 12 and 10 years old, witness their mother's burial, after falsifying to them that she had died of heart failure. Amidst the hullabaloo, Fonda finally married again with Susan Blanchard, and things were looking bright as they adopted a daughter, Amy Fishman. But it was not the best of marriages. And when it ended, Blanchard was telling the world how Fonda was nonchalant about the marriage, using her as a geisha that saw her doing all she could do to make him happy, but to no avail. While Fonda was living his roller coaster life with his women, he was also pushing his career forward. Sometime in 1956, when he was already 51, he took the title character as the 38-year-old Manny Balistrero in Alfred Hitchcock's The Wrong Man, which was released in 1957. Fonda also showed as Juror 8 in 12 Angry Men, a movie he co-produced and later took home a BAFTA Award for Best Foreign Actor. Fonda also ventured into shadier roles, appearing as the villain in the legendary Once Upon a Time in the West, which became a box office hit in Europe. As a versatile talent, his image was outstanding also with lighter-hearted pairings, with Lucille Ball in Yours, Mine, and Ours, plus My Name is Nobody, that he did alongside Terence Hill. With his military experience, Fonda was also in action films as military personnel, as seen in Battle of the Bulge in 1965, when he appeared as a colonel. Fonda was in his late 60s and still working hard. He was once reported to have collapsed on set, but that was just one thing that defined his die-hard spirit. And soon his daughter Jane came forward with the film rights to the Ernest Thompson's play, On Golden Pond. Her real intention is touching, as Jane thought the drama, which echoes the relationship between an emotionally distant father and his daughter, would be a good way to reconcile with her father. Henry earned the Academy Award for Best Actor for that film role in 1981. The production also had Jane Fonda and starred Katharine Hepburn. But by the time the award was being presented, this great talent was dangerously battling heart disease, so he couldn't attend the event. And a few months after, the news came that he had died from the disease. Fonda was also married briefly to the Italian Baroness Afdera Franchetti before marrying Shirley May Adams, whom he remained with until his demise. He didn't quite flow with his kids, and their relationship remained distant and detached. Henry Fonda died at his home on the 12th of August, 1982, though he didn't want a funeral held for him. President Ronald Reagan, who may have encountered him as an ex-performer himself, described Fonda as a true professional dedicated to excellence in his craft, noting that Fonda graced the screen with sincerity and accuracy, which made him a legend. Fonda is widely documented as one of the Hollywood greats of the classic time. If you found this video fascinating, then you won't want to miss our next one, where we delve into the life of Gene Kelly, one of Hollywood's most iconic stars. But here's the question we need to ask ourselves. Was he a monster or a legend? Make sure to click on our next video.